What's up, Painless Flipping podcast listeners? Before we dive into today's episode, I've got something special for you. Recently, I had the pleasure of joining an amazing podcast, and I wanted to share that conversation with you all. It's a fantastic discussion you won't want to miss. So without further ado, let's jump into that crossover episode and hear what we had to say. Enjoy. Welcome to the Painless Wholesaling Podcast, Investors Thrive Nation. Right now, I have some amazing guests with me today. We got Ivo and Annie, the owners of Batch, and today we're going to dive into their start, how they got going in Batch. So I'm excited to interview them. I love Batch leads. I use it in my business, so I wanted to get a hold of the owners and ask them how they got started. Let's talk about the beginning. Like, how did you guys get started, I guess, in real estate?
So, honestly, I've asked myself that question, like, kind of what got me originally interested in just in real estate in general. And it just probably goes back into just reading some books. I remember reading, Robert Kiyosaki's famous book a long time ago. That was in 2006 or 7 at the time. I was still in high school. And then I started getting my real estate license before I was 18. So I started the classes in 17 and I took the test right when I turned 18. And it wasn't until about a year afterwards that I ended up deciding to buy a fix and flip property with one of my best friends at the time. And I never had interest in actually pursuing real estate from an agent perspective, just not what I wanted to do. And we bought a property right at the downturn. We bought it in 2000. I could probably go back and check and see the history, but we bought it 2008 in March, I think. We spent 4 months just renovating it. We ended up fixing and flipping the house. We made 26K in profit, split it in two. That was basically my first, I got hooked. So then I started doing fix and flips by myself. I ended up buying a lot of auction properties at the time. And 2009, that's where I bought, 4 properties that year. And for me, it was a part-time business though, until 2015 and 16. We can get into that, but it was really a part-time business. At the time, I was also working at our, dad's plumbing company, which ended up being an air conditioning company later on. And then the house flipping business was pretty much after hours for me.
That's awesome. You're able to juggle all that. And I'm just thinking, like, man, in high school you read that book, and then right after you got your license and you're rolling. Like, I guess what gave you that interest in real estate in high school? I feel like most kids in high school are like, they're not thinking too much about real estate. At least I wasn't.
I don't know. I just always kind of knew what I wanted to kind of do and pursue in my career, just being an entrepreneur, and real estate was just a vehicle for me to, get there.
So you brought us to about 2015. How about you? Kind of bring us to 2015, and I'm assuming that's when you started maybe working together.
Roughly, I want to say a couple of years before that is when we started working together, but it more so in our family business. As he mentioned, my dad's plumbing company that then went to an AC company that then transitioned into a construction company. So even my dad were head of pretty much the construction company. And when we say construction company, don't think multiple, it's 3 people pretty much in the back end, me, Ivo, and my dad. And then we had 3 employees. And then at that point, I started getting a kind of an interest in real estate because, you have Boy Genius over here being your role model. So having him as a role model, we started looking at doing fix and flips. We did, I think, one together, and then we started doing that separately. So I did my fix and flip, he did his, and we were still doing the construction company. But I felt like at that point we were doing a part-time construction company. We were focused more on our individual efforts. And at one point, I think we realized that our combined effort will go a lot farther if we work together. We can hammer out a lot more properties. I think the first year of working together, I want to say we did about 30 fix and flips. So it was a large operation at that time for us, right? It's 2 people running 30 flips in a year. It was a lot, right?
It was a big learning curve as well.
How were you finding most of the deals? 30 is quite a bit to find.
Wholesalers, MLS, cash offers for a lot of them, but majority of wholesales. And it was at one point that he brought up on HUD statement. And he's like, what is this assignment fee? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just random title fees, escrow fees. No one knows these fees, right? So then he called the title company asking what that is. And he found a Thanksgiving Black Friday promotion for a Sean Terry seminar. It was 2 for $99. So then we went to our first event that got us introduced into wholesaling, what that world looked like, what that meant. There we met a good amount of people that we still are very closely connected to.
Yeah, Brandon
one of them, yeah. He's actually who introduced us to our current business partner, Jesse Burrell.
And that's actually how I know Batch as well, is through Brandon, because I was coming down for a podcast podcast for Steve Trang, and he introduced me to Steve. And then Steve, whenever you go on his podcast, he gives you a bunch of people to reach out to. So I just reached out to Jesse. We met at the old office. Talked to Alex and Kyle, and I've been working with you guys ever since. So crazy how networking can get people to like new levels, right? So now you started meeting through Sean Terry's course. Do you feel like you picked up like how to wholesale like immediately? Did it take some time? Did you start wholesaling deals, or were you just like, what happened at that point?
So we're in the seminar. He's like, oh, okay, I can do this. And he knew that one of his friends was looking for a property. And he's like, oh, I just had the deal sold to me. So he forwards it with a 5K markup. And he sold it. That was his first assignment fee in the event. So the first wholesale transaction that he was a part of was during that event, the first 4 hours of Sean's event. So that's how we knew it worked.
I love it. I think that's like one of the biggest obstacles is actually picking up the phone and talking to people. For a lot of brand new people who want to invest, because they're like, they want to like know everything before they do it, and that's just not how it works.
Yeah, you're gonna make some mistakes. I think some of the things that has helped us get to where we are today is just we always like try to put our best foot forward, and we take action, and whatever sticks, and whatever doesn't, you gotta figure out where you made a mistake and then readjust basically. But at that point, afterwards, like the way it transpired afterwards is we started doing into like bandit signs. Afterwards, I think the next step we took was I started doing door knocking, like pre-foreclosures, and that's another deal that I got. I ended up looking at that deal actually afterwards. It was on Cactus and like 35th Avenue, but we ended up locking the deal. We sold it for like $9,000, and then obviously that grew into our scaling our wholesaling operation. We ended up getting an office, and then we ended up getting invited to Brandon's Go Giver Mastermind, where we met more just people in the industry. We started networking with them. Jesse was one of those people, and that's where I reached out to him saying, hey, like Brandon asked me to reach out to you, see if I can help you in any ways, like maybe with something with systems or processes. And he's like, well, I can probably help you with some sales kind of oriented stuff. So we just started kind of helping each other, and that transpired into basically us merging a lot of our wholesale operation, because at the end of the day, I was like, a lot of times I was basically organizing our like list and marketing efforts, and then I had to help him do the same. So it was just a split effort, double the effort basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we ended up merging a lot of our operation, and that's basically how we partnered.
In the name Batch Leads, it just clicked for everybody. Like, how did that come about?
The name was Batch Lead Stacker actually, because we were stacking leads. That was the original kind of like mini version of what Batch Leads is today.
The first name, obviously, Batch Skip Tracing came first. From then it was like, okay, so how do we keep the same like momentum we have with Batch Skip Tracing? Because everyone knew us for the data, the quality of our data. So we're like, how do we now market this new product to still have that batch presence, right? So if they know us for our data here, they're going to understand that we're valuable in this sector that we're trying to grow in. And in the beginning, I don't think we had skip tracing integrated in Batch Leads. So we're like, okay, so we'll just kind of batch something so that people know and we can still have like our Batch B, right? It's still going to be under that batch umbrella. So that's kind of how we're like, okay, so what can we do? And Batch Lead Stacker came up, and that was too difficult for marketing purposes. It was too long. So we're like, okay, so what do? We renamed that a couple months later to Batch Leads, and that's pretty much it.
Damn, that's an amazing story, because you're saying you didn't even think about it, like building the business of like Batch Leads, right? It just happened. What was your biggest mistake, or maybe a side product that didn't work? Because I think people, they love to hear like the highlight reels, right? They want to see what succeeds, but they also, I think people like to hear like what didn't work and what did you overcome?
We ended up creating a lot of different so we had like an SMS platform at the time, like a long time ago. This was in 2018, probably early 19. Yeah, 2018, I think it was. It was really like an SMS platform that I bought a source code of some kind of platform. First of all, I tried to actually automate an SMS platform for our own kind of internal needs, and we were using, I shouldn't say the company's name, it was like a big telecommunications company that we were using, and we created this script that runs and automates a lot of stuff on top of it, and that got shut down like in probably 3 days. The idea didn't work. Then we ended up basically utilizing another like white label of another like kind of like a bigger telecommunications company. That didn't work, from a lot of marketing. There was a lot of issues with support and just in general, and it just didn't work. Like even we had like a different even name at the time for a lot of these things. We had real estate lists that we tried launching. That didn't really like
we were going to be coaches
because we were thinking should we go into like coaching, because we've kind of gotten a lot of experiences along the way. Should we kind of go into coaching? We spent a bunch of money on that as well, like just doing a lot of courses. That never launched, by the way. It was a quick decision to shut it down.
Do you kind of feel like maybe you make a mistake like on focusing on one thing? When you pick one thing, you're like, man, we should have focused on that as you go through that path? Like
the way I see it, and even like I can relate that to a lot of how like the products are built nowadays, not just in our company, but generally how like software products are built. It's more of the agile methodology, where instead of like the opposite of the agile is just a waterfall method where you spend years of creating this perfect software, as an example, and then it releases. And that's what happened, I'll tell you, like with a lot of the Microsoft in the early 2000s, where they spend I don't know 5, 6, 7, 8 years just building a perfect software, and when it launched it was just a complete failure. Whereas nowadays, from a lot of the way software companies iterate is and create products is more on agile. Hey, I'm gonna basically create a prototype MVP of the product that I'm trying to build. I'll get a lot of feedback and I'll just keep adding features basically, but every 2 weeks, the idea is that every 2 weeks, this is just more product, just around how products are built, but every 2 weeks you're releasing like some updates to the product. And the idea is that you're just constantly improving.
Are you focused solely on like working with real estate investors, or is it venturing off into, other industries as well now? Because I know every industry needs data.
Yeah, we're doing a lot today to be able to support other industries, and we do have even today. It's going to support multiple industries. Now, this is where it goes into how many industries it's going to support.
What's your outlook on data? Do you feel like in the future there's going to be more data and it's going to be more easily to like get more information, or do you think it's going to get restricted somehow?
Data is the new gold. Data is the most expensive resource in the world basically at this point. And you see obviously with everything happening with the AI, the generative AI, all of the stuff, it all feeds, data's fed into that machine. So it's just going to get more and more prevalent in our lives. Now, as far as a lot of restrictions, there's going to be more restrictions, but the amount of data that gets bought and sold and utilized across the world is going to be enormous.
That's interesting. I'm curious as like for data, like you guys are focused in the United States, right? Are you looking into maybe getting into like Canada or other countries so people can maybe use that data to like wholesale or buy properties there?
Maybe eventually, but that's really the focus that we're trying to. There's just so much more opportunity even in the US for us. I've been asked, even I remember even a few years ago, it's like, hey, can you have the same type of data and for wholesalers in the UK is an example that people ask me, and like maybe one day. For us, there's a lot more opportunity in the US and just being focused. And again, like you mentioned, there's different verticals that we have to go into and that we can go into.
I just find it very interesting data, right? Or because everybody is on the device now, right? So that's like attention is the new gold, right? The more attention you can have, whether people are on social media or anything, like that's where they're gathering their data. I think it's amazing that you've gone into this product because real estate is amazing, right? It's always going to be there, but data, I'm excited for you and your company because it's just going to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, data is going to eventually get, a lot of the data is going to get, commoditized, and, we're looking into a lot of different areas as far as how do we basically create first-party data insights that nobody else could have. So, for instance, people utilizing our products, how do we take a lot of that data based on, the way you use the products, and what do we know about everything that you do around the products, how you mark leads and stuff like that. How do we basically enhance our data model to be able to have a first-party data basically, and that's basically data that's only going to be unique to us at that point. But a lot of the data is I do see it in the future getting just commoditized, property data, things like that. That's eventually I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of this data. But it's the companies that are going to succeed are the companies that are going to implement a lot of machine learning and AI around the data and be able to create derivative products from it.
That's wild. So as we're talking about this, my mind's going like, who is this person in the company that's like able to process all this information?
We have a lot of smart people in the company, honestly, and that's I think the next thing that I think part of the reason why we're here today is we're really focused on being surrounded by people that are honestly smarter than us in a lot of areas. I'm not the smartest in everything, and it's impossible for me to be, and so we just have to find people that are better at certain things than I am and Annie is, and have them basically run the ship in that department.
So I do want to ask this. So you build a company, you know that OKRs, all these goals are extremely important. Do you feel like you could do it without setting goals and it could just happen? Or do you think it's like necessary in order to grow to like have, like plan it out, like go for objectives, like plan out how you're going to achieve it?
I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible for an individual running their own operation if they don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're striving to, right? Like it goes back to like that shiny object, like, oh, this looks great, let's do this today, let's do that tomorrow. We all have like daily things that come up in our lives that, whether work or professional, right, that you're just like, okay, I'll just focus on this problem, I'll solve it, and then I'll move on to doing whatever. But no, like you have like that one thing that we're all driving to. As an organization, like we're all focused on achieving this one thing, whatever that one thing is, and like we're all driven to do that. When someone comes in your office and they're like, hey, can you do this? Like, no, like that's not part of my OKRs, right? It's not part of my objectives. Like you have to say no to some things, personally and professionally, to be able to reach there. It's like, I forget the saying, but it's like, if you don't know your destination, are you gonna get there?
Yeah, exactly. I really appreciate learning about your journey, because I think it should give everybody that's listening to this like excitement or energy to be like, hey, I can do this too, right? Because you've sat here and just said, hey, it's not like I was given this business or it was perfect. You're saying, hey, we figured it out and we're continuing to figure it out. So this has been inspiring. Go out there. If you're brand new, go make a phone call, take action, and one day you could be sitting here with Evo and Annie. Talk to you guys later.